Welcome everybody to this latest video 162 Maths, and in this video we'll be going over the AQA GCSE Maths paper of June 2023, Foundation Paper 3, which is a calculator paper. Now before we get started working through the paper, a little reminder that I'll include a link to the paper in the description below along with a question breakdown so you can see which question refers to each topic on the exam paper in case you get stuck on a particular question and you need to go back and revise. I'll also include a link to the 162 Maths contents page, which has loads of access to, or easier access to, all the videos including lessons, topic tests, audits and other exam paper walkthroughs. So let's get straight into question 1. So question 1a says solve 5x minus 15. So what we need to do when solving equations is get x by itself. So we need to get rid of the 5. What's the 5 doing? It's multiplying. So to get rid of it, we need to divide by 5. And 15 divided by 5 is 3. Then for 1b, we've got solve y plus 7 equals 50. So to get rid of the plus 7, we need to take away 7. And 50 take away 7 is 43. Then for 1c, we want to solve c divided by 4 equals 8. So we need to get rid of divide by 4 to multiply by 4. And 8 times 4 is 32. Moving on to question 2a, it says write down the mode of the set of numbers. So the mode is the most popular or the most common, and you can see here we've got more 4s than any other number. For 2b, it says work out the median. So for this we can see first that we need to order the numbers. And it's really important that you do show that you're ordering the numbers, as that will carry 1 mark. So I've got 4, 4, 8, 10, 11, 12 and 15, and just count. Got 8 numbers. I've written down 8 numbers. So the middle number is going to be between my 4th and my 5th number. And what number is between 8 and 10? That's going to be 9. Then moving on to question C, it says work out the range. Well, the range is the biggest number take away the smallest number. So that's going to be 15 minus 2, which is 13. Moving on to question 3a, it says that a fair spinner with 5 sections is spun. Complete these statements. So I'll just zoom out so we can see what those statements are. And it says the spinner is most likely to land on which section. So we want the biggest section, which is D. The spinner is equally likely to land on sections, and so we're looking for which sections have the same size, and that's going to be A and E. And you can write A and E in any particular order. Moving on to question 3b, it says 2 different spinners are spun. One spinner has a sections labelled with colours, the other spinner has sections labelled with numbers. Here are the list of all possible outcomes, and it says show the possible sections on the 2 spinners. So for colour we can see we've got 3 options. So what we need to do is split this up into thirds now. Again, I'm going to struggle doing this accurately on the computer, so I'm just going to tell you what it should look like, in which each of these sections should be 120. And it's always good practice to label the section. So we've got red, blue and green. Then for number, what we need to do is divide this into quarters. Oh, that's completely way off. Again, do need to be accurate with this, so make sure you are using a ruler, using a protractor where you can. And all of those need to be 90 degrees. And we just need to label each of the sections 1, 2, 3 and 4. Moving on to question 4, let's just zoom in so we can see the question a little bit clearer on the screen. It says a reel holds 9.5 meters of ribbon. 2 pieces of ribbon are cut from the reel. Each piece is 20 centimeters long. What length of ribbon is left on the reel? So for this, all we need to do is, first of all, working with the units. So we can either work with centimeters or we can work with meters. Now I'm going to go for centimeters. So we've got 950 centimeters. And we've got 2 lots of 20 centimeters, which is 40 centimeters in total. So what the question is asking is we just need to subtract those 2 numbers. So that's going to be 40. That's going to leave me with 110 centimeters. So there is one answer. Or if you're working with meters, it would be 9.1 meters. So any of those 2 answers would be fine. And again, do not give 2 different answers, even though they may be the same. Just be confident in the one that you write down. Moving on to 5a, it says the term-to-term rule for a sequence is subtract 1, then multiply by 5. The first term is 4, work out the third term. So if we start with 4, what we need to do is we need to take away 1 and then multiply by 5. So 4 take away 1 is 3, times 5 is 15, and then 15 take away 1 is 14, times 5 gives me 70. So the third term is going to be 70. Then for B, it says the term-to-term rule for a different sequence is add 20 and divide by 2. The second term is 50, work out the first term. Well, to get from the first term to the second term, we add 20 and then we divide by 2. So if we're going in the opposite direction, we need to multiply by 2 and subtract 20. So here our second term is 50, so 50 times 2 is 100, take away 20 gives me 80. Moving on to question 6, it says that Scarlett leaves home at 10:00 to cycle to the supermarket. Here is part of the distance time graph of her trip to the supermarket. And it says that she arrives at the supermarket at 10:20. How far is the supermarket from her house? So the supermarket is here, so going across, that's going to be at 7, so then it's going to be 7 kilometers. Then says she leaves the supermarket at 10:35. How long does she stay at the supermarket? So what we want to do is just measure the distance of the horizontal line. So this bit here is B, and you can see each little chunk of squares is 5, so we've got 5, 10, 15 minutes. That's going to be 15 minutes. It then says for 6C, Scarlett cycles home at a constant speed using the same route. It takes 3 minutes longer than her journey to the supermarket. Complete the distance time graph. So here we can see that from the first section that it takes 23 minutes from home to the supermarket. So then what we've then got is it's then going to take, it's going to take 20 minutes. So then it's going to be 23 minutes from the supermarket back home. So she left the supermarket at 10:35. So then she arrives home at 10:58. How I got 10:58 is just simply by adding the minutes to the time. So going back to the graph, we then need to find 10:58, which is at this point here. Then all that's left for me to then do, because it's a constant, she's traveling at a constant speed, we just need to draw a straight line from when she leaves the supermarket to 10:58. And again, want to be as accurate as possible, making sure you're using a ruler for that line. For question 7, it says this week Liam works 25 hours at £10.20 per hour and extra hours at the weekend at £11.80 per hour. And it says here are the extra hours he works at the weekend, and it says in total how much is he paid. Well, for this we know that we need to work out 25 hours at £10.20, so that's going to be 5 lots, or 25 times £10.20, which gives me an answer of £255. Then for the overtime, well, looking at the hours, that's going to be 3 hours, that's going to be 2 hours, so a total of 5 hours overtime. So the overtime pay is going to be 5 lots of £11.80, which comes up to a value of £59. So all that's left for me to then do is add those two amounts together, in which I get an answer of £314. Moving on to question 8, it says 3 oranges have masses of 60 grams, 70 grams and 85 grams. Show that their total mass is between 1/5 and 1/4 of a kilogram. Well, 1/5 of a kilogram is going to be 200 grams and 1/4 of a kilogram is 250 grams. So all I then need to do is add the two amounts together, so 60 plus 70 plus 85, and type that into the calculator. That gives me 215 grams. And as you can see, you can then write something along the lines of 215 is between 200 and 250, or you could write it in using inequalities. So we've got 200 grams is in between 215 grams and 250 grams. So something along those lines would be absolutely fine for the 3 marks. Moving on to question 9, it says for each of the statements tick the correct box. So we've got always true, sometimes true, and never true. One of 3 angles of a triangle is 90 degrees. Well, that's sometimes true, but not always true, or never true. Because we could have a right angle triangle, we could have a scalene triangle, which could also be right angle triangle. One of the 3 angles of a triangle is obtuse. Well, again, that sometimes may be true, but not always true, or never true. And one of the 3 angles is a reflex angle, which can't be true because a reflex angle is bigger than 180, and angles in a triangle add up to 180, so that is going to be never true. Always be careful with these questions. Don't always think that there's going to be 1 in each column. You may think, right, okay, well, I've got 2 sometimes true, 1 must be always true, 1 must be sometimes true, 1 must be never true. You don't get those types of questions. So it could be all in one, it could be 1, and 1 could be completely ignored. So don't try and be cleverer than the actual exam questions, thinking that's going to be 1 of each option. Moving on to question 10a, it says simplify fully p squared times p. So this is going to be simply p cubed. Then for 10b, and again, let me just explain why that is. So it's going to be p squared is p times p, multiplied by another p, and we've got 3 p's being multiplied together. For question 10b, we've got to collect the like terms. So we're collecting the a's. We've got 3a take away 1a, which is 2a, and then 5c plus 6c is 11c. Moving on to question 11, it says 2 angles around a point are shown. The angles are in the ratio of 2 to 7. Show that the larger angle is 280. Well, total sum of angles is 360. So if I share 360 degrees in the ratio of 2 to 7, this is the small angle, this is the large angle. So here we've got 7 parts. So 360 divided by 9 gives me an answer of 40. So each part is 40. So if I then do 2 times 40, which is 80 degrees, and 7 times 40, which is 280 degrees. And as you can see, therefore, the larger angle is 280. Moving on to question 12a, it says C is a number that's greater than 4, D is a number that's less than 4, and C minus D equals 4. Work out a pair of values for C and D. Now again, there are multiple answers for this that you could give. It's just making sure that they do fit the rules in which it's stated here. So again, you could go into decimals. I'm going to go for the whole number options that you could have. So you could have any of the options. So you could have 5. So this is for C. This is for D. So you could have 5 and minus 1, 6 and 0. You could have 7 and 1. You could have 8 and 2, 9 and 3. Ultimately, you could have decimal versions. So again, just make sure that you can check your answers. But as long as when you subtract C from D equals 6, and that C is a number that's bigger than 4, and D is a number that's less than 4, then that's going to be absolutely fine. So any of those options would be acceptable. Moving on to 12b, it says W is greater than 1 and less than 2. X is greater than 0 and less than 1. Work out possible pairs of values for W and X. Now, because we've got decimal numbers here for when we add the 2 numbers together equals 2.6. Again, we could have a range of values depending on what degree of accuracy you're working with, whether it be 2 decimal places, 3 decimal places, 1 decimal place. But I'm going to assume that we're going to go for 1 decimal place. So again, going through the options, if W is 1.5, then X needs to be 1.5, because remember, 2 of the numbers need to add up to give me 2.6. I've got 1.2, and that's going to be 1.4, 1.3, and just do the list of all the numbers that we've got, which I don't need, I've done a mistake already, so that should be 4. Then 1.5, 1.6, 1.7, 1.8, and 1.9. And again, because they're the numbers that are greater than 1 and less than 2. For X, it's got to be between 0 and 1. So as you can see, none of these numbers apply just yet. So I've got 1.3, 1.2, 1.1, 1, 0.9, 0.8, and 0.7. So again, in terms of the valid options I could have, or any of those bottom three that I could have, so all I then need to do is just write down one of those. So I could write 1.7 and 0.9. So again, any of those three options would be fine. Again, if you go into two decimal places, just simply type into your calculator and see when you add the numbers up, it adds up to 2.6. Moving on to question 13, it says here are three straight lines. Are A, B, and CD parallel? Tick a box to see if they're which answer is correct. So again, what we can do is opposite angles we know add up to are the same. So this angle here is going to be 95. Now, if A and B and C and D are parallel, then these two angles here need to be the same, which as you can see, they are not. So we just need to write something along the lines of if AB and CD are parallel, then corresponding angles are equal, and which they are not. So 95 does not equal 105, so therefore it's not the same. So moving on to question 14, it says match the algebra to the correct description. So if I just zoom out so we can see all the options. So here we've got 5a equals 20. Well, that is an equation because we've got one letter and we've got an equal sign. For 4b is greater than 20. Well, that is an inequality, so that's going to be there. And 2c plus c, and we've got, is going to be an identity because we've got that symbol there, so that is going to be a relatively quite simple one. Moving on to question 15, so let's just zoom in so we can see that question a little bit clearer on the screen. It says popcorn is sold in bags. 5 small bags have a total mass of 496, and 5 small bags and 2 large bags have a total mass of 638. Work out the mass of a large bag. Well, if we try and write this using algebra, then what we get is we get 8s equals 496, and then this line here is 5s plus 2l equals 638. So solving this, what we can then do is we divide by 8, so we get s is equal to 62 grams, and all I've done is just type that into my calculator. So then once I've worked out the value of s, I can then substitute it into this expression here. So I've got 5 lots of 62 plus 2l equals 638. I can then work this out using the calculator. 5 times 62, which is 310, plus 2l equals 638. I can take the 310 over to the other side by subtracting. So I work out that 2l equals 328. I can then divide by 2 to work out the value of 1l, which is 164 grams. And there is my answer for that one. Moving on to question 16, it says the rectangle and triangle have the same area. Work out the length of the rectangle. Well, I can work out the area of the triangle by doing base times height divided by 2. So that's going to be 16 times 12 divided by 2. Type that into my calculator, I get an answer of 96 square centimeters. So to work out the area of the rectangle, well, that's just going to be length times the width. So that's going to be 7.5 times the length, and that's going to be equal to 96. So then all I then need to do is divide by 7.5. I can then work out what the length is. So the length is going to equal 12.8 centimeters. Moving on to question 17, it says match the name of the correct sequence, and it says one has been done for you. So a linear sequence, so again, remember what a linear sequence is. A linear sequence is a sequence of numbers where the difference between each number is the same. So that one, as you can see, is going to be our second option, where the difference is going up in 4s. Now Fibonacci sequence, that's where you take the first 2 terms, you add it up, and it gives you what the next term is. And that is going to be the first one. Moving on to question 18, it says the number of hedgehogs in England is expected to reduce by 4% each year. Assume there are now 1 million hedgehogs in England. Work out the expected number of hedgehogs in England after 5 years. You must show you're working out. Now this question here is a compound interest question. So here we start with the original amount, which is 1 million. Now when we're decreasing by 4%, remember we always start with 100%, take away 4%, and that equals 96%. That as a decimal is 0.96. So we multiply that by 0.96 and we have it to the power of however many years or the time, and that's going to be 5. So all I then need to do is just type this all into my calculator, in which I get an answer of 815,372.69 blah blah blah. Now because we were talking with hedgehogs, it needs to be a rounded number. So here we just got to give our answer as 15372. I'm going to round down, and there is my final answer. Now they would accept any answer for 2 marks between 800,000 and 820,000. Moving on to question 19, it says here is a cuboid A. Cuboid B is made up of 2 lots of cuboid A. Volume A to volume B is in the ratio of 1 to 2. Matthew says that the surface area of A to the surface area of B must also be 1 to 2 because B is made up of 2 lots of A. Is Matthew correct? So for this, if I just zoom out so we can see all of it in its entirety, of course it's going to reset every time I do that. So looking at this particular question, what we'll do is want to work out the surface area of each of the shapes. Now the surface area for A, it's the area of each of the faces. So here we can see we've got, in total, we count the number of squares, that's going to be 6 squares. And then if we work out the surface area of B, so counting the squares, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then we've got 1, 2, so that's 10. So then looking at the ratio, so the surface area of A to the surface area of B is in the ratio of 6 to 10, which is in the ratio of 3 to 5, which is not 1 to 2. So they're different. So then that is my working out in my explanation. So the answer then is going to be no. Moving on to question 28, says complete the table of values. So we've got y equals x squared plus 2x. So what you want to do is substitute the numbers in x to give you y. So for this one here, we just need to type in our calculator minus 2 squared plus 2 lots of 2. And for this one here, we're just substituting 1. So we've got 1 squared plus 2 lots of 1. And we've got our answer there. So the numbers you should have are going to be 0 and 3. For B, it then says just to plot those coordinates. So if I just zoom out so we can see everything on the screen. So at minus 3, it's at 3. At minus 2, it's at 0. At minus 1, it's at minus 1. At 0, it's at 0. And at 1, it's at 3. So all that's left for me to then do is just simply join those points up. Now again, it's going to be really difficult for me to do this on the computer. Hopefully yours should be a continuous curve and it should look something like this. Now I always say it's always good practice for you to extend from minus 3 to 1, but as long as your line starts at x equals minus 3 and x equals 1, then that will be fine. These little bits of extension bits are absolutely fine. I always encourage students to go that little bit extra. You're not going to lose any marks for it, but it is very good practice if you do that. Moving on to question 21. Let's just zoom in because we've got a fair bit of reading on this one. So it says that Jing has £2,450. She saves some and gives the rest to her 4 brothers. Money saved to money given to the brothers is in the ratio of 2 to 5. She gives each of her 4 brothers the same amount. Does each brother receive £430? So let's have a look at this. So the first thing we want to do is we want to share 2,450 in the ratio of 2 to 5. So again, what we do, if I just write down money saved to money given to the bros, and that's in the ratio of 2 to 5. So if I do 2450 divided by the total number of parts, which is 7, that comes up to a total of 350. So then to work out each of these amounts, I just multiply these by 350, in which 2 times 350 is 700. So that's how much she saves. How much does she give to her brothers in total? That's going to be 1750. And then what I then need to do is then see how much each brother gets. So we know that there are 4 brothers. So we divide this number by 4 and I get an answer of 437.50 each. So the question's asking, does each brother receive more than 430? Well, the simple answer is going to be yes. And make sure you always do check what the question's asking. If I don't write yes, I'm only going to get 3 marks. So make sure you do state or answer the question that does each brother receive more than 430. And again, if you wanted to, you could write 437.50 is greater than 430, but that's going to be completely optional. Moving on to question 22, it says a pie chart shows information about people at a fair during 3 days. There were 132 more people on Friday than were on Thursday. Work out the number of people that were there on Saturday. So the first thing we want to do here for this particular question is work out the difference in the angles. So here we can see the difference in the angles is going to be 80 minus 25, which is 55 degrees. Now it says that the difference is equal to 132 people, so that means 132 people equal 55 degrees. Now what we're wanting to know is what 1 degree is, so therefore 1 degree, and again just need to divide by 55. I do the same with 132. So 132 divided by 55 is 2.4 feet people. Now this is really, really important because now what I now need to do is work out what the angle for Saturday is. So the angle for Saturday is going to be 360 minus 25 minus 80, which is 255 degrees. So then if each degree is 2.4 people, the number of people on Saturday is going to be equal to 255 multiplied by 2.4, and if I type that into my calculator I get an answer of 612. Moving on to question 23, it says that use trigonometry to work out the value of x. Now with this, it's really important that you label the triangle carefully. So this is my angle, this therefore is going to be O, and this side here is going to be A, and this side is going to be H. And because I've got no information on H, I can scribble that out. So what I'm looking for is which trig ratio uses O and H. Well, again, depending on how you know the formulas, it's going to be using tan. So substituting the values into the tan formula, I've got tan 58 equals x over 46. So then to make x a subject, I need to take the 46 over to the side by multiplying. So x equals 46 times tan 58. I'm typing that into my calculator, in which I'm getting an answer of 73.6153884. And again, there's no issue on rounding because it doesn't specify, so you can give your answer in any which way. I'm going to write it to 1 decimal place, but if your rounding is a bit dodgy, just simply copy the answer off the calculator. Moving on to question 24, it says Millie is estimating the value of 1 over, and then we've got the cube root of 8.34 all squared multiplied by 10.21. She rounds each decimal number to one significant figure. Work out the Millie's estimate. You must show your working. So what we need to do is we need to round the numbers up to 1 decimal place, 1 significant figure rather. So what we've got is we've got 1 over, and then we've got the cube root. If we round this number up to 1 sig fig, that's going to be rounded up to the nearest unit. So that's going to be 8 squared times, and it's going to be 10. Now, if we type that into our calculator or you work it out, you should end up with 1 over, the cube root of 8 is 2, 2 squared is 4. So I've got 1 over 4 times 10, which is equal to 1 over 40. And if I want to convert that into a decimal, it gives me 0.025. So any of those two answers would be absolutely fine for the 2 marks. But it's really important that you do show you're working out at least the fact that you've rounded each of those numbers up to 1 sig fig. Moving on to 24b, it says Millie says my estimate must be more than the exact value. Without working out the exact value, give a reason how she can know this. And the reason she knows this is because we or she has rounded down each number. So she's used a number that's smaller. So even writing that, we've used smaller, or she's used smaller numbers in the estimation calculation. That would be absolutely fine for the 1 mark. Then moving on to our last question, it says to factorize x squared plus 8x plus 15. So what we're looking for are two numbers that multiply to give me 15, added together give me positive 8, and the two numbers in question are going to be positive 3 and positive 5. So you can write that in any order, those brackets, but you must have a plus 5 and a plus 3 in there. For 25b, it says write down the two solutions of this. Now it's already equal to 0, so we don't need to worry about that. So from this, all we then need to work out is y plus 2 equals 0 or y minus 4 equals 0. Solving this, we get y equals minus 2, and solving this, we get y equals 4. And these two here are our two answers. So the answer then is minus 2 or positive 4. And there we go.